Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Cadisen C8185MGGW. This watch is available from Cadisen official store for €128. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the other items one gets with the piece. So the watch comes in a watch box which is protected by this black cardboard outer sleeve which one removes, and this is the watch box itself. One removes the lid and the watch sits in a foam cutout panel in the base as one would expect. Although basic, it does suffice in protecting the watch in shipping, and I think it's perfectly acceptable to use a basic style of watch box, bearing in mind this is a low tier price point piece at only €128. With the watch, one gets this owner's instruction booklet which one folds out, clear concise diagrams. The instructions are in English and it details the operation of the movement used, which is the Miyota caliber 8285 automatic. This is the warranty card, and I'm pleased to report the watch is covered by a 12-month international warranty. And lastly, one gets this stainless steel pushpin tool for resizing the bracelet. It's made from solid stainless steel, no old shank to it, and we have a 1mm pushpin for pushing out the pins. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, this is the Cadisen C8185MGGW. The watch is clearly on homage to the Rolex Day-Date, so very similar proportions. We have a 40mm case diameter. We have a 48.2mm lug-to-lug measurement, a thickness of 11.3mm, and a lug width of 22mm. The President style bracelet tapers from 22mm at the lugs down to 17mm at the hidden 2-button push to point clasp. Now with regards to the taper, I think this could be improved. A better proportion taper would be 20mm down to 16, which is the industry standard for 40mm head of the pieces. So a 22 down to 17, it's a rather odd taper, and the 22mm lug width looks out of proportion. The President style bracelet looks too wide at the head of the piece. I think a 20mm lug width versus the 22mm used would have been better. So with regards to the deployment, two hidden triggers, good firm resistance to the two triggers, and both halves of the deployment open very easily. However, the left hand deployment side is very stiff and there's room for improvement with the build quality and the quality control. The right hand side of the deployment is free as one would expect, so this is correct, but this one needs improvement. So it's a shame that they haven't got the build quality of the deployment correct. Having said that, the finishing to it is done to an acceptable standard, mirror polish to the top side, underside and flanks, and I like the firm resistance of the two triggers. So it does snap shut with a nice positive click to both the left and the right hand portion, and it does a good job of replicating the Rolex Day-Date President bracelet, and I think that they have done a good job of it, although I would like to see a Cadisen emblem embossed as per the Rolex Day-Date with the Rolex coronet embossed. With regards to the rest of the specification, we have a flat sapphire crystal and a Cyclops magnifier. Now the negative of the Cyclops magnifier is that it only has 1.5 times magnification. On a Rolex Day-Date, the magnification is 2.5 times, which enhances the legibility of the date complication. So this is something I would like to see Cadisen improve upon, upgrading from 1.5 times magnification to 2.5 times, because that would make the date window larger and easier to read. There's no AR coating on the underside of the Cyclops magnifier. And with regards to the sapphire crystal, that's a negative of it because it doesn't have any anti-reflective coating on the underside. When I tilt the piece at an oblique angle, you can see there is a lot of glare and highly reflective nature due to the silver baton hands and also the silver Roman applied numerals. So this would really benefit from the use of clear AR coating because the legibility is poor due to the lack of the AR coating. Having said that, the silver mirror polished baton hands are very well finished, as are the silver applied Roman numerals. Easy to read the dial, and the applied silver numerals contrast very well with the grey meteorite dial. Credit where credit's due, Cadisen have done a very good job of the meteorite dial. It's very aesthetically pleasing with a grey texture to it, and it's got a nice sheen to it which looks metallic rather than being matte. So the meteorite dial is very well done, as is the printing on the dial and also the rail track chaptering which is around the circumference. Now underneath the sapphire crystal you can see there is a laser engraved Rehort, and like the Rolex Day-Date, Cadisen have laser engraved Cadisen all the way around. Now I think they've made a mistake on this because it's mirror polished. The rehautes would look better and be less reflective if it were brushed satin finish, as per Rolex rehautes. I think the mirror polishing is too reflective because effectively what one gets with the rehaut is it's like having a mirror underneath the sapphire crystal, and this compounds the problem of not having anti-reflective coating, because when the light passes through the sapphire crystal it then bounces around the mirror polished rehautes like a mirror, and then it further reflects off the applied indices and the silver baton hands. So it really doesn't help the legibility. If they had brush satin finished the rehautes, it would have refracted the lights rather than reflecting it. And I think, again, there is room for improvement. But having said that, they have laser engraved Cadisen to a high standard. I'll show you the case back. We've got a screw down exhibition case back, which is glazed with mineral crystal. The screw-down exhibition caseback provides an effective hermetic seal to 100 metres, which is perfectly acceptable, and it does a good job of displaying the Miyota caliber 8285 automatic. It's well finished and also well engraved with the specification of the piece. It's low profile and I like the mirror polishing to it and also the milled slot, so it's a very well executed screw-down exhibition caseback. The solid end links are a good tight fit to the case and they are well finished. So with regards to the end links, they're a good tight fit to the head of the piece. Female pivoted end links allows the end of the President style bracelet to articulate very well to give a nice snug fit to the wrist. However, the negative is there is a lot of play, both lateral side-to-side play and also up and down play in the end link, as you can see, so it's a sloppy fit. The President style bracelet is a sloppy fit to the end link. And also in every one of the links of the screw pins we've got significant play, and the problem with the cumulative effect of this is it feels like a very slack and sloppy bracelet, and it rattles. It makes a very irritating rattling noise when on the wrist, so I dislike it. I think there's room for improvement on the tolerances of the push pins going through the holes in the links because they do rattle. I'll just check the other side for comparison. As you can see in the end link we have lateral side play and also up and down play, and again all of the links in the President style bracelet have too much play. Using push pins rather than screw pins is a cost cutting measure, and again I would like to see Cadisen upgrade to using 1.6mm screw pins because that would tighten up the slack in the bracelet from using the push pins. It would really improve it. But having said that, with regards to the mirror polishing to the centre links, it's done to a good standard. There's a beautiful lustre to the outer links which are brushed satin finish, and that contrasts with the mirror polished flanks, so no sharp edges, no burrs, despite the fact it's got too much articulation and too much play. So I'll give you wrist shots and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now I haven't sized the bracelet, I've simply taken the watch out of the watch box, and I'm pleased to report it fits my 8-inch wrist perfectly with no sizing needed whatsoever. As you'll know from my previous reviews, I like to size my bracelets loose so I can fit an index finger underneath the bracelet and clasp at all times. This allows for wrist expansion in warmer weather or when one is active. So it does feel very comfortable and it is very aesthetically pleasing, although they have got the taper incorrect. 22 down to 17 is an odd taper. The industry standards are either 22 to 18 or alternatively 20 to 16 respectively. 22 to 17 isn't used because it's too wide at the head of the piece and too wide at the 2-button push to point. It does sit very well on the wrist. Very well balanced piece despite the bracelet being too wide, and the proportions are very good. 40mm head of the piece and 48.2 is very close to perfection with regards to the lug to lug measurements. As you'll know from my previous reviews, I consider 48mm to be the sweet spot, regardless of whether you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist or a 7 to 8 inch wrist respectively. So at 48.2 it's just above the perfect lug to lug measurements. Relatively low profile piece at only 11.3mm, so it's easily going to slip underneath a shirt cuff if you wear business shirts. Comfortable piece to wear for long periods of time, such as 8 to 12 hours per day, because it is only 136 grams with all the links in the President style bracelet. So it's well balanced, it feels comfortable, the feel good factor is good, the comfort level is also good. It's just a shame that it doesn't have clear AR coating on the underside, because as you can see there's a lot of reflection, and it's also a shame that it doesn't have a 2.5 times magnification Cyclops magnifier. Right, so let's test the screw down crown execution. Solid 316L grade stainless steel screw down crown, coin edge finished, embossed with a Cadisen brand emblem, mirror polished cap to a high standard. So let's test the action. Silky smooth. The screw down crown is very well executed. Nice interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. So pulling it out to the first click position is the day date complication setting position. If I rotate the crown clockwise, if you look closely at the day complication at 12 o'clock, you can see it advances. Now it's a curiosity of the Miyota Caliber 8285. Rather than just having one click for each day of the month, it actually has two clicks. One has to rotate it one click and then the second click, one click and then the second click to advance the day. But having said that, it does index very well, but one has to get used to the two click feeling of it if you're familiar with the one click feeling of a date complication. Rotating the crown anti-clockwise advances the date complication, as you can see, and that has a conventional one click to the date complication. It clicks over with each day of the month very well. Nice positive click, and it's very good to use. Pulling it out to the second click position is the time setting position. Nice firm resistance to the Miyota Caliber 8285 automatic. No backplay clockwise and anti-clockwise. It feels stiffer. One can feel the gearing more than, say, a Seiko NH35A, which you might be familiar with. And I actually like the feeling of it. It feels like a good solid movement. One thing I like about the 8285 is it has hacking. If you look at the second hand, it's possible to hack the movement and stop the second hand dead to set the time precisely to the second. This is something that earlier versions of the Miyota 8125 don't have. One cannot hack the movement, although later versions do have it on the 8125 and also the 8135 respectively. So I like this about the Miyota 8285. One can hack the movement. Pushing it back in has got a nice positive click, and that restarts the movement. One can see the second hand begins to sweep around the dial. Now, the negative of this being a 3 Hz movement running at 21,600 vibrations per hour versus 28,800 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 4 Hz is the second-hand judders or stutters around the dial. This is a characteristic of 3 Hz movements. Personally, I prefer 4 Hz movements because they have a smoother sweep, but I appreciate for the majority of collectors that juddering or stuttering second-hand isn't going to be an issue. So let's test screwing the crown back down. Immediate thread pickup. So this is very good screw down crown execution, and 100 meters of hermetic seal is perfectly acceptable. Right, so no need to do a loom test because there's no loom on the Roman indices. So let's discuss the movement used. You'll all be familiar with the Miyota Caliber 8285 automatic. It's a day-date complication movement. It has 21 joules and it runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. 42-hour power reserve is perfectly acceptable, and it has a unidirectional rotor. Personally, I prefer automatic movements to have a bidirectional rotor, which winds the movement both clockwise and anti-clockwise. The negative of Miyota movements such as the 8285 is the rotor has to spin anti-clockwise in order to have a winding effect. When the rotor spins clockwise, it has a negligible effect. It doesn't wind the rotor, it doesn't wind the movement, so therefore it isn't as efficient. The other negative of Miyota movements in the 82 series is that they are noisy, and one can hear the rotor on wrist spinning round, and it's significantly more noisy than a Seiko NH35A, for example, which you might be familiar with, and that's something that takes some getting used to. Now, again, it's subjective. For the majority of collectors, a noisy rotor isn't going to be an issue, but I personally like a quiet rotor, as per the Seiko NH35A. And this is something I dislike about the 8285, the fact it has a noisy rotor. The same applies to the 8125 and the 8135 respectively. It's a characteristic of Miyota movements, they always have noisy rotors. The stated accuracy of the 8285 is -20 to +40 seconds per day, so a rather wide accuracy range. However, I'm pleased to report that Cadisen are well regulating their Miyota movements. This one is running consistently at +8 seconds per day, which is excellent for an 8285. So 42-hour power reserve is acceptable, +8 seconds per day is also acceptable. The 8285 is a reliable, well-proven workhorse movement, and although noisy, it is very durable. and also the accuracy is reasonable. Although it's stated as -20 to +40, they are typically regulated better than that to within plus or minus 10, and this one's +8 as an example, so it is good enough. So lastly, I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch meet two criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So €128 is the price point of this piece. Really, to evaluate it, one needs to study the finishing of the head of the piece throughout. The stainless steel fluted bezel is finished to a good standard, and it does a good job of replicating the Rolex fluted bezel, which is made from white gold or alternatively platinum. Mirror polishing to the head of the piece is very good on the tops of the lugs and the flanks of the case. And the finishing of the bracelet, as I've detailed, is also very good. No sharp edges, no burrs. Mirror polishing is good to the centre. Brush satin finishing is good to the outer links. However, there is a lot of play, so there's room for improvement with the build quality and the quality control. And also that applies to the two-button deployance because the left-hand side is too stiff. So room for improvement on the quality control, but the finishing throughout to the head of the piece is very good. So what we've got here is a good head of the piece on a poor quality bracelet. Very hard to evaluate it without splitting the two, the head of the piece and the bracelet respectively. So I would describe the value as being okay at €128. I think to make this piece more competitive, Cadisen official store need to reduce the price to circa €100, and therefore it would be better value. The quality is also okay. I'm not going to say it's good or excellent because it's let down by the bracelet, which really is poor. And I think that needs to be resolved before I can say it's good or excellent quality. So I'm going to recommend it to you for your consideration, but be mindful of the shortcomings such as the lack of AR coating, the 1.5 times Cyclops magnifier, and also the play in the bracelet. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Cadisen C8185MGGW. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you very much.